So if you are watching this video and you are a San Antonio Spurs fan, even just reading the title probably touched you better than any Abala Danger video has ever touched you before, because the reality of a potential trade that could send Darius Garland to the San Antonio Spurs is not only fantastic for the Spurs, but a decision that could really propel them from being one of the worst teams in the league to automatically being a playoff contender. Now, there is, of course, a report going around right now that does suggest the Spurs are very interested in acquiring Darius Garland, and this is all being reported by Sam Amico. Now, before I get into how awesome this would legitimately be for the Spurs, I'd like to start off by saying I don't think this is going to happen at all. I legitimately just don't think the Cleveland Cavaliers would be really entertaining this trade, because I don't necessarily know if they would get back, really enough out of a potential trade for Darius Garland, especially if someone like the Spurs. I think if the Cavaliers are going to trade Darius Garland, at this point, it is obviously going to be to upgrade to a different all-star. Maybe an all-star who's not necessarily better, but an all-star who maybe fits Donovan Mitchell's game style a little bit more. We got to remember, when Darius Garland is not playing with Donovan Mitchell, he is one of the best young guards in the whole entire NBA. We got to remember, before Donovan Mitchell arrived, Darius Garland was he was edging towards being a top 7 best guard into the whole entire league. He literally made the All-Star game, absolutely bowled out. The Cavaliers partnered him up with Donovan Mitchell, and in the first year, it wasn't that bad. They actually kind of worked decently together, but he wasn't as good as his All-Star form. And then in the second year together, Garland just had a ton of injuries, and again, it just didn't really work out. What people legitimately got to remember as well is that Darius Garland's trade value is still extremely high in the league. It's even that high that there was a report a little bit ago that said that some NBA scouts genuinely would rather trading for Garland than Trae Young, just because we know how great of a playmaker Garland can be, while also making a system a whole lot better. Now, again, theoretically, what would a trade look like? There's really a ton of different scenarios that the San Antonio Spurs could legitimately go. One player that I have to part ways with is Keldon Johnson, which some Spurs fans would be happy about, some other ones maybe not. Obviously, Zach Collins would have to be in there as well. You'd automatically look at those two guys and probably a Trey Jones and another couple of first-round picks on top. That would probably get the deal done. The other one, the Cavs might just say, we want Devin Vassell and we want Zach Collins and maybe something else, and we'd get that deal done, right? Maybe something like that. But if you're the Spurs, the proposition of partnering up Victor Wembanyama with Darius Garland would be absolutely insane. Not only would Darius Garland go back to probably averaging 23 points per game and 8 assists per game or so, like he was doing before Donovan Mitchell was on the team, I think he would turn Victor Wembanyama into a 10 times better player that he already is, which is extremely scary to think. If you think about how good Wembanyama is already with just having average playmakers in his team, like Trey Jones, imagine adding Darius Garland, who, when he's on, is arguably a top 5 in the whole entire league, and he's one of the best playmakers in the pick and roll. We've seen what he can do with Evan Mobley, and we've seen what he can do with Jarrett Allen. Can you imagine partnering him up with Victor Wembanyama? That would be the most scary thing that you could possibly nearly see in the NBA. Again, we obviously know that the Pelicans have been really trying to do this as well. They've been trying to offer up Brandon Ingram and a first-round pick or two to try and get Garland to the team. Cavs have obviously declined that because it's just not a good enough trade. But again, imagine for their sake, could you imagine a Zion Williamson and Darius Garland duo? The lob threat and the pick and roll plays they could do. Yeah, it'd be absolutely crazy. And you're kind of seeing that same thing with Wembanyama and Darius Garland. Imagine the legitimate pick and roll plays that those two guys could achieve together. Yeah, it would touch you in places. As I said, like before this video started, it'd touch you in places that really no Abala Danger video could pretty much do to you. So, yeah, I do legitimately think that if the Spurs are to go out and get a point guard for Wembanyama, I think for their sake, really, even if it means overpaying, you don't necessarily have to do it this year. You don't have to even maybe do it next year. You've got Wembanyama for so long, you can wait it out and wait for the perfect opportunity. I think going for a player like Darius Garland is the perfect thing to do. I still think Trae Young would be a good fit. I don't think Trae Young is as good as a pick and roll passer as what Darius Garland is. But the reality is we haven't seen Trae Young with a guy like Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. He's had average centers for a lot of his career so far. So we haven't seen what he gets to do with like all-star caliber centers like Garland's gotten to do. But Garland's a safe bet. And as I said, I kind of dismissed this earlier, but as I'm going on, I'm kind of thinking there's also no reason you couldn't maybe orchestrate a three-team trade. I mentioned earlier that, you know, a trade of Ingram and a first-round pick is not enough for Garland. It just wouldn't. The Cavaliers would not do that. Garland is a proven all-star who they think can still take the next step. Ingram is not proven and sometimes can be very inconsistent. He is not an all-star when I say he's not proven. But if you were to go up to the Pelicans and be like, look, we really want Darius Garland. We want to facilitate a three-team trade. They could maybe make it work. The issue is the Pelicans would be arguing the same thing. We really want Darius Garland. We want to do a three-team trade. And they probably wouldn't do it with them because it would just be a big argument over who actually gets to have Darius Garland. But if the Cavaliers were to, in a three-team trade, get back Brandon Ingram, Zach Collins, and a couple first-round picks for Garland, maybe they would do that. Again, those first-round picks would be pretty late, especially if they're the Pelicans, because I think the Pelicans could seriously become one of the best teams in the league with a Zion, CJ McCollum, and Darius Garland trio. But again, is that still enough to persuade the Cavaliers? Because the Cavaliers, they're not really in the market for first-round picks. Those first-round picks are going to be in the 20s, right, late 20s. So really, the only thing you're getting in this trade is Brandon Ingram and Zach Collins. Is that enough for the Cavaliers to facilitate this trade? I'm not sure, and I don't think so. I don't even know if that really improves your team. It might look better because you don't have the two shorter guards. But is it going to be better? Yeah, I'm not really sure. I still think Garland has an opportunity to be a near top 5 point guard in the NBA. I mean, especially if teams are valuing him over Trae Young in trades. You know damn well that teams think that this guy can be better than Trae Young, who was seen as a top 5 point guard in the league by most people. Like, teams see this man. He might not put up the same stats as Trae Young, but stats in the NBA don't always mean anything, or everything, sorry. And if Darius Garland goes out and he puts up a couple less points than what Trae Young does, maybe an assist less or two, but the overall system and game style and proficiency looks a lot better with Darius Garland than what it was if the team got Trae Young, then yeah, that's legitimately why. Again, we just got to remember that Darius Garland, the Cavaliers might even just sit on this, because the reality is if Garland has one more offseason with Donovan Mitchell, hopefully gets off the injuries and figures his game style out, who says that, you know, maybe with no injuries and some actual continuity in his play, that maybe Garland couldn't go back to averaging like 21 and 8 with Donovan Mitchell and working a lot better than what they are right now. I ultimately think the Cavaliers are just going to sit on this at the moment and not trade Garland. But yeah, if you're the Spurs, this is something that you definitely really want to do. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you guys think a team like the San Antonio Spurs should trade for Darius Garland, or should they not? I'd very much like to know. Check out my gaming channel and my IRL/vlogging channels. Links for them will be in the description down below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.